Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit 411 podcast, where we explore resources and strategies to help nonprofit organizations. I'm Sarah Barton, your host, and today I'm excited to welcome Rosemary Ketchum from the West Virginia Nonprofit Association. Rosemary serves as the executive director and is excited to share with us a little bit about her organization today. How are you?
Sarah, hi. Thanks for inviting me. I feel great. Excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you on and to learn more about West Virginia Nonprofit Association. So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at the association?
Yeah, thank you. The West Virginia Nonprofit Association is the foremost organization supporting nonprofits in West Virginia. We are part of a national council of nonprofits throughout the country who support and protect and defend their nonprofit sectors. We're so excited here in West Virginia to be a membership organization of over 300 nonprofits within the state. And we work with them all the time in consulting, in membership benefits, answering questions, addressing challenges, helping them fundraise and write grants, which is really key, connecting them with business consultants. We exist as a kind of one-stop shop for nonprofits who are interested in expanding their capacity or reimagining what their organization looks like. And also one of the most exciting things that we offer is support for folks who have yet to start a nonprofit. If you have an idea or you're like, you know what, I would really love to make my passion a reality by creating a nonprofit, we can help with that too.
Oh, that's very exciting. I get that question all the time. People who want to start a nonprofit and they're not sure where to start. So I will remember you as a resource for that because that's a great idea. Thank you so much. I actually usually advise them to partner with a nonprofit and learn a little bit more about it before they launch into the business of a new nonprofit. But that is a great resource. So I will remember that and make sure that I refer them to you in the future.
Thank you.
So can you tell me what inspired you to get involved with nonprofit association and the nonprofit sector in general?
Oh my God. I mean, I think if you ask anybody who is in nonprofit leadership, how they got there, they will tell you a 5-hour long story about their career path. I don't think any of us necessarily have a linear career path in the nonprofit sector. What I can say is I started my career in the mental health field. I have a degree in clinical psychology and worked as the associate director of a mental health facility here in Wheeling, where I am based, for about 3.5 years. And I loved that work. But I kind of burn out really quickly. Anybody who has worked in direct service or in the mental health field, they know what that's like. And I realized that I really love and appreciate the kind of policy and administrative piece of the work. And so the very start of my career was in nonprofit mental health, and then transferred into admin. I ran for office here in the city of Wheeling on our local city council, and that really kind of confirmed my love and appreciation for policy and advocacy. And so worked there for a little while, for about the past 4 years, and also worked for another statewide community organizing organization. And I will say, like, one of the inspirations for applying to this position at the Nonprofit Association was the work that I did around the American Rescue Plan. So cities across the nation were allotted, billions of dollars to disperse to nonprofits affected through COVID. And I watched us build a system to disperse these funds, and I watched us communicate with our nonprofit leaders about what it looked like to support their missions and to fund the most valuable projects or the projects that had the most impact. And having worked in nonprofits previously, I was just reminded the power and influence that we have as a sector, but also I think the lack of support and the lack of, I would say, defending or advocacy that we have. When folks work in nonprofit, you're kind of expected to just like take it on the chin, and it's a sacrifice, and you're supposed to love the work and not ask for more. And I don't think that's ethical. I think that nonprofit leaders and folks who work in the sector deserve all the respect and integrity and livable wages and support as any other sector. And so when I had the opportunity to work for the association, I thought, what an incredible opportunity to use my governing experience to support and protect and defend some of our most vulnerable folks, serving some of our most vulnerable constituencies here in the state of West Virginia. So that's my very nonlinear path to the association, but so excited to be here and to work with an incredible team.
So I love so much of what you just said there. I definitely want to take a little minute to unpack it because I always advocate for nonprofits in our communities because they're such a vital source of support for our communities. And so often we don't even consider them a sector in the business community. And so, yeah, so I am a huge advocate too for nonprofits. And then, you talked about making sure that we're taking care of them and having worked so I worked in healthcare at a nonprofit in healthcare during COVID. And it was one of the things that I saw was that people didn't realize that, that sacrifice never stopped and they didn't have a break. They were dealing with all the crisis of COVID as well as continuing to serve. And it has led to a lot of burnout that kind of concerned me too. That's why I started nonprofit 411 and my business Perfuse Solutions, because I see that they need support. So you are clearly passionate about advocating for them, and I'm so excited about that. Tell me a little bit more about the advocacy piece and what you see the association doing moving forward and in that area.
Yeah, good question. So the association looks at advocacy and really our work in three different buckets. We look at it as capacity building. What does it look like to really address the challenges and gaps that the sector is facing, whether you are a member of the association or not? It's our obligation as an organization to really kind of assess the landscape and figure out what do we need to do from a capacity building standpoint to support these nonprofits. And so that looks like helping them with financial compliance. That looks like helping them address turnover in their organizations. That looks like helping them think about professional development or HR or healthcare benefits. All of those things are questions that folks can ask us. We may not have all the answers, but we have a really strong network so that we can help you find those answers. The next bucket is advocacy. What does it look like for us to kind of stand on our own 2 feet and beat our chest a little bit as a sector and say, here are the things that we deserve. Here are the policies that we think will support the work. I know that a lot of our folks are kind of afraid or shy to speak to legislators or go to the Capitol. And obviously there are things that we need to be careful of legally. But it is our obligation to advocate for change in the nonprofit sector. We are having a summit in September called Speak Now, advocating for change in the sector. And a lot of the theme around that conference is defining lobbying and defining advocacy and making it clear that talking to your legislator is not a bad thing, right? And we want to make sure that folks feel compelled to do that. The other piece of our work is networking, just connecting folks with each other. I know folks are tired of hearing about COVID, but we still are feeling ripple effects through COVID. A lot of organizations became remote, either remote staff or remote boards. And that was efficient and effective in many ways. And a lot of the work still gets done, but you lose a piece of that humanity when you're not with your people. And the work that we do in the nonprofit sector, whether we're serving children or our elders, or we're consulting, or whatever our constituency, right? There is a human element that is so key. And I think that we lose when we're not in person. And so we're working really hard to host as many in-person events to connect leaders with their peers, and understanding that, frankly, many of the folks who work in nonprofit are also clients of other nonprofit profits that they might, be a part of. And we want to make sure that there is synergy among all of those buckets that we have, so that nobody falls through the cracks. And we feel really good about the work that's happening across the state. We just want to make sure that nonprofit folks feel supported and that they have a kind of a shoulder to lean on and to cry on and to, go to battle for them whenever they need.
Yes. Yes. So, I'm so glad that, you're working on the advocacy piece. I actually presented at the HRSA conference in Washington, D.C. earlier this year about how to advocate with individuals who make policy. And, there's so many opportunities for us to network. And a lot of it is just sharing what you do. You don't have to, you're not lobbying, you're just sharing, hey, like this is the thing that we see as a challenge in our community, and this is how we're addressing it. And for fundraising, which is kind of the area that I'm focusing on, in my business and helping organizations learn how to fundraise, if they've never done it before, and how to enhance their efforts if they have only diversified a little bit in their fundraising, and so telling your story is such a big part of that, telling, and it's helping others. Or I always say fundraising is inviting others into the solution that you see for this
Mm.
problem. It's amazing what some of our nonprofits achieve in a year, the amount of impact that they make in a year. And to be able to invite other people into that is such a gift. Like, I wish that they knew what a gift it was to hear about their work and about their passion and about how they're changing lives, because I don't always have the opportunity to do that. You live in Wheeling, I live in Parkersburg. I don't have the capacity right now to be able to change lives in Wheeling, but I know
Right.
that there are nonprofits there that are changing lives in Wheeling, and I want
Mhm.
people's lives to be changed in Wheeling too. So, so that's kind of, and I think that the advocacy piece it's so exciting. I hope that you have just ongoing impact from the summit forward, and make sure that, this is work that continues to happen, and that it really starts to change the voice here in West Virginia. So you talked a little bit about at the beginning about all the resources that you provide. Can you just dive in just a little bit deeper so that our listeners can understand like some of those resources? You offer so many. I know that they didn't catch them all the first time, and they'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. I want to kind of make a remark regarding one thing you mentioned, this idea that we want to build kind of relationships among funders, and that it's less of an ask and more of an invitation. I think that is such a genius way to phrase it, because it's true. Most
Mhm.
funders want to be part of a mission, and we're seeing this kind of trust-based philanthropy and fundraising really take shape in West Virginia, which means that funders kind of want to know your narrative and your mission, and they want to be part of it. We've even seen folks say, like, we want to award you this grant. We also want to be represented on your board, or be on some committee, or at least be a movement partner with your organization, because we so align with your mission. And that's really, really good for the sector and really good for our folks. And so, yeah, among the membership benefits that we have, being able to build those kind of philanthropic and funder relationships is really key. But yes, we are a membership organization. Membership is based on operational expenses. Many of our members pay about $100 a year, and the membership benefits that they receive obviously exceed the $100 that they pay a year. Membership benefits include GrantStation. If folks aren't using GrantStation, you are missing out. It is a one-stop shop for all kinds of grant information around the state of West Virginia. Essentially a search engine that you can use, type in your keywords, find grant opportunities that support your mission. It's a $169 value. It's free for members of the association. We have a slew of other membership benefits, including a portal that you can access on our website if you are a member, that provides discounts on hotel travel, on rental cars, all of the things, all of the kind of like nuts and bolts pieces of running a nonprofit that you're like, oh my gosh, obviously you can become a member of the association. One of the things that we do also love is our listserv. And so you have access to the kind of brains and expertise of the 300 plus members within the association through our listserv. It's used daily. Folks will ask questions about HR. They'll say, hey, I've got this issue that I'm dealing with. Does anybody have a consultant or somebody that I can look for? We have questions around healthcare. It's one of the biggest
Mhm.
issues that our sector is facing. We don't have kind of a broad or universal healthcare system. And so a lot of our smaller nonprofits are asking our listserv members, hey, like, what are you using? What are your rates? Is this normal? Should I look someplace else? And that resource is truly invaluable, because otherwise you're going to Google, or you're, calling maybe a peer. And rather than having access to one person, you have access to an entire network of 300 plus folks. So that is really, really exciting. And then obviously the training trainings, an opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with our experts on staff, programming, membership. We have an incredible board. And obviously, I want to work with as many folks as possible to make sure that if they're starting a nonprofit, they're starting it on the right foot. And if they're in the middle of their nonprofit professional career, they can get some development or support from the sector.
Well, and I'll tell you a secret that I'm a for-profit consulting agency and I'm a member of the West
Uh-huh.
Virginia Nonprofit Association. So it is available to consultants of nonprofits. Anyone else in the for-profit sector that is allowed to become a member?
Absolutely. Yeah. Membership looks different for everybody. So we have individual memberships for folks who might run their own nonprofit by themselves or not own a nonprofit at all, but want to support the sector. As you mentioned, business consultants represent a large swath of our membership, both because they have access to our membership and we like to refer our members to you guys when they have questions, because that's what kind of reciprocation and synergy looks like within the membership organization. And then we have kind of traditional larger nonprofits with a handful of employees that, utilize our membership because they look for business consultants. They utilize our listserv. GrantStation is invaluable. And they love having the kind of like one-on-one relationship whenever they have a question. I can't tell you how many calls I get that go, "Hey, Rosemary, this might be a dumb question, but XYZ." And I'm like, it's never a dumb question. We're all kind of figuring it out as we go along. And the association loves to be able to help people untangle those problems. We're problem solvers at heart in the nonprofit sector. For better or for worse, we do it to ourselves. And to have somebody to call when you are stuck or when you have some questions, I think is a really important tool.
Yeah, yes. And I'll tell you that I use GrantStation. Alice Runke was actually my first, she was my
Love.
first interviewing for the podcast. And when I went to sign up for GrantStation, because I have a lot of clients who are interested in writing grants, I've done it for many years and I always refer them to GrantStation.
Yeah.
And then I saw that it was a benefit at the association and I was like, well, that would make even more sense for me. So, so I recommend anytime I have a West Virginia organization that's interested in writing grants, I always refer them to, the nonprofit association and utilizing that benefit as well as the other benefits, because the cost is about the same, and you get the bang of both worlds, and it can be even cheaper depending on their status, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's an amazing resource. And a lot of the resources that you have available, I utilize them as a consultant, because I want to make sure that I'm giving quality information to my clients. And so I utilize it for that reason.
Thank you.
So, are there any real life examples of nonprofits that have significantly benefited from the association that you want to share with our listeners, just to have an idea of how it's positively impacted a nonprofit?
Yeah, I mean, really, really, yes. I have worked with the organization since March of this year, and so I'm very new. And yet, I've dove head into the work, and there have been so many folks who have reached out to me and said, a couple years ago, I was in a really tough spot, and I reached out to the association. And the tools that you provided or the network support that you were able to give us was instrumental in helping us untangle a problem. Some real life examples. So we held our spring roundtable series in May, and we traveled the state, Parkersburg, Wheeling. We went to Fairmont. We went to Morgantown. We went to Charleston. We held a statewide session around something called Alice Data, which is a kind of a data set that kind of shows folks what it looks like to kind of work full time and still not make ends meet here in the state of West Virginia. Those were really well attended. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the nonprofit leaders in the room said, actually, I'm Alice Data. Like, it's hard for me to make ends meet. And I work full time in a nonprofit that I love. And we were able to help a lot of these leaders either access additional resources or help build their own capacity within their organizations so they didn't have to take the full brunt of it. One of the other pieces there, I spoke about this earlier, is healthcare. We've had a lot of small nonprofits say, gosh, we can't afford to take on a full healthcare plan for our organization. Oftentimes, healthcare is just as much as somebody's salary. We're seeing 40 to 50% of operational budgets going to healthcare. And that's not atypical, but it is not often sustainable. And what just naturally happens when you get a bunch of nonprofit leaders in the room is they start networking and they start sharing ideas. And I remember a particular moment in, I think it was Fairmont, where we were at lunch after one of our sessions, and a group of nonprofit leaders kind of huddled up after somebody asked a question in a previous session about healthcare. And I remember that leader left that meeting on a phone call with the healthcare plan that they were signing up for their staff. And had they not come to that session and met those folks, I'm not sure that would have happened. And that's just a small example of what the power of networking can provide, and pulling folks together and having those vulnerable conversations. Because it's not easy, right? As a nonprofit leader, to have that conversation with your board or your staff. Sometimes you want to take it to a peer first or a colleague and say, can you help me work through this or think about this in a new way? And that's something that we obviously support and try to create as often as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And healthcare is such a critical area. And I do know that it's such a challenge for nonprofit organizations. I actually worked in HR at a nonprofit organization. And one of the things that we learned was that we could educate our staff about West Virginia CHIPS, because the organization provided insurance for the employee at a very affordable rate, but then families were still struggling to cover their kids, and so West Virginia CHIPS, many people don't realize how much a family can earn and still qualify for West Virginia CHIPS. So to be able to provide insurance for their children was just life-changing. And it's so rewarding to see those, those opportunities and those moments. And I'd love to see more and more of kind of that services for the whole sector, right, coming out forward for nonprofits, so that we can unite together, because in numbers, we actually have so much more impact.
Yeah, and what it does is it keeps people in the sector, and it keeps people in West Virginia. I think our most existential crisis as a state is population decline. And, there are, over 10,000 nonprofits in our state, and that number is growing, and we love to see that. But it's one thing to start a nonprofit. It's another thing to keep a nonprofit, right? It's one thing to move to West Virginia. It's another thing to stay in our state. And as many resources and support as we can provide as an association, as individuals, as leaders in our state, the better, because we can't do it alone. And as a sector, we are more powerful when we are working in a coordinated fashion. And so that's something we're excited to do for our members, for non-members, to pull folks in, because we are, as I mentioned, stronger together as a state. And we want to make sure that everybody feels like they have a stake in the game.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So how can our members get in touch with you if they want to learn more and they want to learn about membership?
Good question. You can call me directly at 304-650-8727, or you can send me an email at rosemary@wvnpa.org. But if you want to learn more, feel free to go to our website, wvnpa.org. Our front page will show you our summit, which is upcoming September 18th, 19th in Glade Springs. We're so excited to host a series of incredible panelists and keynote speakers and sessions around financial compliance, policy, and advocacy. We'll have our National Association of Nonprofits interim executive director at our summit. This is a national organization that's able to convene here for West Virginia in September. So we're so excited to welcome them and introduce them to our members. If you want to learn about membership, go to our website. We have a list of our membership benefits, a list of possible colleagues or peers that you may know who are also members. But I recommend that you reach out and give me a call or give me an email, send me an email to learn more. I'd love to kind of chat one-on-one about that. And one of the other things, I'm based in Wheeling, but I love to travel. And so if anybody is interested in meeting in person, grabbing coffee, giving me a tour of their facility, I would love that too. I think that would be very fun.
Oh, yes. I'm so glad that you're willing to do that, because it is exciting when you get to see boots on the ground, what we're actually doing. And so it's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners before we end the podcast today?
Oh, I mean, I want to say thank you. because it's hard to be a West Virginian, and it's hard to be a West Virginian nonprofit sometimes. The challenges and the struggles are real, but you do the work because you understand the impact and you know how many people are benefited by your passion and your dedication to the work. So thank you for what you're doing, nonprofit leaders out there. It's tough. Burnout is real, but you have support like no other. And my hope and ask is that my invitation is that you reach out and you seek that support and peer-to-peer relationship, because that's what keeps us doing the work.
Yes, thank you so much. And I love that final message because recovering from burnout takes time, and it definitely takes support for any of those nonprofit leaders out there that are, experiencing that. And for those that are just starting, it's so nice to have a network and people to embrace us and welcome us, because it is such good work. So good people doing good work.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your time today. And I appreciate you sharing all of these resources with our listeners. And I look forward to being able to partner with you more in the future. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Nonprofit 411 podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes and check out Rosemary and the West Virginia Nonprofit Association online. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah.